stand by. And a countdown cue to Kate from Clapham, roll 39.
Okay, cameras rolling and cue.
Now, Kate, looking back over the 70s, as far as music is concerned, what are your thoughts about the music in the 70s?
I think there's been an incredibly big revolution. I think the fact that right at the beginning of the 70s there was the punk thing was very much a birth thing, and I think it's developed something that would never have happened otherwise. It made people rethink music, and especially lyrics and attitudes. And I think people are now much more interested in becoming a projected image on television. Like, a lot of people are starting to act and use their hands and fight back. And a lot of the lyrics are just talking about stuff that was never talked before, which is very good.
Right, now being both a songwriter and a performer, and also being very active on stage with your movements, ballet and etc., do you think perhaps that in the early 70s that people were just getting up and just standing there and not sort of expressing anything on stage? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that used to get me a lot, because when I used to watch telly and you'd see singers, how they'd broken their heart.
Right.
You know, I just couldn't understand why they were singing when they obviously weren't connecting it with their emotions, because singing is such an emotional thing. That's what music is, you know. It can make people cry. And I think people are beginning to get into that a lot more now. They're actually becoming the song rather than just being the plastic image, which is great, because the more we get rid of that, the better, I think.
Now, who were you following, say, around about the start of the 70s?
Well, I've always been into Bowie, because he was very different. He was doing that thing, you know. And I really loved Roxy music when they came out. I was really into people that were trying something new and different. And I've always been into people like Dylan and the Beatles, obviously. Yeah.
Now, when you sort of talk about Dylan and the Beatles, which emerged in the 60s, some critics say that there was no statements made very much in the 70s, that music was almost bland for the first part of the 70s. What do you think on that statement?
I think generally, I guess that is an observation that is quite correct. But if you look through it, there must have been something in there, because amongst all that music, there always is something good. There always is.
What do you think of groups like the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac, really?
Well, the Eagles, for me, their album was One of These Nights. I thought that was just incredible. It was so full of emotion again. But I must admit, they seem to have lost that spark. And it's the spark that I want, you know, from any of these musicians. It's just that feeling that they're still trying. They're still trying to get better. Fleetwood Mac, I think they're getting better. But I've not heard much of their new album, but what I've heard is good.
Right. Now, with your own music, you put more emphasis on your visual thing. You put down a record, you can recreate that record on stage, and then you act it out on a visual thing on stage once you get onto, like, in front of a camera or something like that. A lot of acts, especially during the disco period, piled their records with synthesizers and that. Do you think that records became a little bit overproduced?
I don't know about overproduced. I think definitely the manufactured style, yeah. Because like you turn on the radio in the car, and one after the other it would be this, and you sort of think, what? I've heard this before. And every song had the same formula. You know, like Sin drums. They're a really big statement of the 70s. You know, the doo-doo. Everyone knows that they've been exploited. And I think that happened a lot with a lot of instruments, especially synths, that they've just become so exploited that people treat them like the normal thing. They don't treat them as anything special.
Now, the other thing is that the age of female singers suddenly came to the fore at the end of the 70s. Yourself, Blondie, and people like that. Do you think that the females found their own niche in the rock business, perhaps in the 70s?
Well, I like to think that the reason why females did suddenly start coming up again was because there were some females around with talent. Because there have been females in the business forever, you know. But a lot of them haven't come through maybe because they just haven't got it. That's how I like to think of it, not that it's just a chauvinistic thing. And hopefully more and more females are going to be in the music business from a young age. Like, you're getting a lot of female musicians now, which is new and good. And they're being treated with more respect, which is very important, because as long as, like, you have females being treated as a plastic image that used to happen, they're not going to have a chance. But I think people are now opening up to them, and it's the talent, I hope, that is getting there, not just their females.
And the music for the 80s? first part of the 80s? How do you see it?
Oh, I think it's going to be very sci-fi, because the big trend, especially cinematically, in the last, say, 3 years has really been science fiction. You know, Star Wars, The Alien, and they're fantastic films. And musically, there's not really that much to go with them. In fact, the nearest thing is Gary Newman.
Right.
I don't know if that's happened over in Australia.
Chibayami.
But in England, he's just gone berserk. People are mad over this guy and his music. And I really feel that the synth sound he's getting is the equivalent to the visual sci-fi.
Right.
And that's what I think will happen soon. But it won't last long, I don't think.
And Kate Bush, the 80s.
I just want to keep trying. I hope I can stick around, because there's going to be so much exploding that I think a lot of us will maybe go under if we don't keep trying.
And you're writing a lot more songs?
Yeah, I am. And, you know, myself personally, I've been so inspired by the new groups that keep popping up. I mean, the one at the moment that just bores me over is Police. I think they're just incredible. Such a good band. And, you know, bands like Thin Lizzy and Boomtown Rats, they've got so much energy that you just sit there and think, wow, you know, I've got to do something.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Well, listen, thanks for being on the show again.
Thank you. It's good to see you again.
Sure is.
Yeah.